is also still facing backlash over his comments calling Liz Cheney, who endorsed Vice President Harris, a war hawk, saying, quote, let's put her with a rifle.
Former President Donald Trump has once again been involved in multiple legal issues. This time, the focus is on his recent comments about Liz Cheney and the significant consequences they could have as he heads toward the 2024 election. As of today, Trump is facing potential criminal charges in Arizona due to his statements, which have raised concerns over possible violations of pretrial and pre-sentencing release terms in his ongoing prosecutions.
Shooting at her. Let's see how she feels about it, when the guns are trained on her face. And at a late-night rally plagued by audio issues, the former president...
We will explore how these comments could impact Trump's standing in multiple cases and even lead to a revocation of his release. Through a breakdown of events and implications, we will dissect why this situation is more serious than it may appear and what it could mean for Trump's future. In response to Trump's recent remarks targeting Liz Cheney, the Arizona Attorney General has initiated a criminal investigation to determine if his comments amounted to a direct threat under Arizona's law. The law in question, Arizona Code Section 13-1202, covers threatening or intimidating communications and conduct, with the potential for these actions to lead to both misdemeanor and felony charges, depending on the context and intent.
Pointing at her, she wouldn't have the courage or the strength or the stamina to even look the enemy in the eye.
In his statement, Trump reportedly made a concerning remark about Cheney, saying, let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her. This type of language could be interpreted as a form of intimidation or a call to violence, and legal analysts argue it aligns with threatening language under Arizona law. The word let's is key, as it implies collective action, potentially intensifying its threatening nature. Trump's history of statements and the resulting actions from his supporters, whether it was chants of "hang Mike Pence" or inciting violence against public figures, supports an argument that his rhetoric may be inducing actual threats.
In North Carolina today, and
the second major issue arises with Trump's release terms in his ongoing cases. Legally, when a defendant is on pretrial or pre-sentencing release, as Trump is, they must avoid committing further crimes. In the event that a crime is committed, or if their actions present a clear and convincing threat to public safety, judges have grounds to revoke their release. 2 pathways to revocation are possible in Trump's case.
New threats against Liz Cheney could come into play in those criminal cases, actually in 2 separate ways. First of all, if he committed a new crime, and we have already heard that the Attorney General in Arizona has opened a criminal probe into these threats to determine whether he in fact committed a new crime. If Donald Trump committed a new crime, then he should, if we apply the rule of law as it was intended to be applied, he should be revoked on pretrial release in the multiple cases in which he's on pretrial release. He should also be revoked on pre-sentence release in New York. Why? Because the conditions of his pretrial and pre-sentence release include that he must not commit any state, federal, or local crime. If this satisfies the elements of threats under Arizona state law, well, then he has...
If we look upon crime commitments, then if Arizona determines Trump's statements legally qualify as criminal threats, it would constitute a violation of his release terms. Pretrial release conditions in New York, for instance, clearly specify that no additional federal, state, or local crimes can be committed. Violation of this condition could lead to his detention pending trial. And even if Trump's statements do not technically breach any criminal code, the courts may still interpret his language as posing a significant threat to the public or a specific individual. If clear evidence exists that his rhetoric endangers Cheney or any other target, this could be enough to revoke his release.
The Attorney General in Arizona has opened a criminal probe into these threats to determine whether he in fact committed a new crime. If Donald Trump committed a new crime, then...
In both scenarios, legal experts argue that Trump's conduct aligns closely with grounds for revocation, yet the likelihood of this outcome before the election remains debated. Trump's latest remarks targeting Cheney aren't isolated. There is a well-documented pattern of inflammatory language directed at public figures and groups, followed by real-world consequences. Trump's comments about other political figures, including Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and former Vice President Mike Pence, have historically sparked serious threats and violent rhetoric from his supporters. Legal experts suggest that this pattern is evidence of a cause-and-effect relationship between Trump's speech and the responses from some supporters. This record could be presented as additional justification for taking his recent statements seriously under Arizona law.
Under Arizona state law, well, then he has inarguably committed a state crime. That means judges should revoke him and should.
Judges and prosecutors may look to recent events as indicators of how Trump's language incites action. His rhetoric has previously spurred plots and conspiracies, such as the attempted kidnapping of Whitmer by a group later criminally charged. This pattern might strengthen the case for prosecuting Trump's comments about Cheney, emphasizing how statements that may seem politically charged can lead to real threats against individuals' lives and safety. The legal standards for a potential revocation of Trump's release differ from those of a criminal trial. Instead of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, the standard required here is merely a preponderance of the evidence, a lower threshold meaning that only 51% of the evidence is needed to support the claim. In the case of revoking release based on a violation of release conditions, prosecutors can argue that Trump's language in recent statements poses a credible threat to Cheney's safety, thereby meeting this evidentiary threshold.
A new crime, federal, state, or local, you should still be revoked on release and detained, jailed, pending either trial or sentence.
This lower standard for revoking release means the Arizona criminal probe has a reasonable pathway to succeed, which could complicate Trump's position further as he approaches the election. If Trump's release is revoked, he could face detention until his court appearances, affecting his campaign activities. Furthermore, suppose Arizona's investigation moves forward with charges. In that case, Trump might face additional court appearances and potential penalties, including fines or jail time, depending on the severity of the charge. Classifying the crime as either a Class 1 misdemeanor or Class 3 felony is pivotal, with the latter potentially applying if the threats align with broader racketeering or organized crime purposes.
Trump being locked up in his criminal cases while those cases proceed through the system. Now, does anybody expect that will happen before the election? I think it unlikely.
Given Trump's current charges in Georgia for racketeering and efforts to overturn the 2020 election, Arizona's classification could align his comments about Cheney with similar objectives, potentially elevating his case to a felony level. Trump and his defenders may argue these statements are simply protected speech. Yet, Supreme Court rulings indicate that the First Amendment does not protect speech that incites imminent violence. Every jurisdiction in the U.S. prohibits threatening language precisely to prevent harm. When speech crosses from political expression into intimidation, it falls outside constitutional protections. In the wake of the election, legal experts suggest that prosecutors may issue show cause orders to hold Trump accountable for his remarks. This order would require Trump's legal team to present a case for why his release should not be revoked based on the potential threat his comments pose. Depending on the election outcome, Trump's legal strategy and options may shift, particularly if his opponent declares victory, potentially amplifying scrutiny on his conduct. Trump's ongoing legal entanglements create a complex situation where past conduct intertwines with new, potentially harmful statements. Whether or not Arizona's investigation proceeds with formal charges, Trump's words may now be scrutinized under stricter standards, given his record of inflammatory language. The outcome of this case could shape Trump's political future and serve as a crucial example of how the legal system interacts with high-stakes political rhetoric. This story emphasizes the boundaries of free speech, the responsibilities of public figures, and the rule of law's ability to adapt to modern political challenges.
What I am hopeful we will see happen, Brian, I am hopeful that as soon as Kamala Harris is declared the victor in the upcoming election.
What do you think? Is Donald Trump a time bomb about to explode? Or do you think these all are to gather the plea of supporters? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more open discussions.